Good afternoon and welcome back to this session of Wilmington City Council's Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting. My name is Bud Friel. I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. I just want to acknowledge other council members that are with us. President Nifa Shabazz, Councilmember Chris Johnson, Councilmember Cyril Adams, Councilmember Rashima Dixon, Councilmember Sam Guy, and Councilmember Cynthia Oliver. As you know, the mayor presented his fiscal year 2021 budget back in March, and then it becomes council's responsibility to review that budget. And by code, we have to pass a balanced budget by the end of May. This is the sixth in a series of budget hearings. But I do want to remind people that the mayor's budget was proposed before the COVID-19 crisis really hit us. So during the budget, you will hear some additional comments about cuts that were being made after the budget was proposed. But I will tell you that we will probably be back here in the fall making more adjustments to the budget. It could be several times over the next fiscal year. We'll continue with the same format we've used for other hearings. We'll have a brief presentation by the Office of Management and Budget. Then we will turn over to the Director of Finance Department, Mr. Bret Taylor. And then we will have, we'll go through the questions and answers. There's a time limit of 90 minutes on this budget hearing. I'm asking all council members to keep questions to budgetary matters. Any programmatic or constituent issues should be addressed in other forums. If we don't get through all the questions, council can follow up with the department head or with our Chief of Staff, Michelle Bastnight. There will be a period at the end of the hearing for public comment. Constituents will have a chance to log in and raise their hand. I will give them 3 minutes, but they must keep their comments to the budget that we are reviewing. Also want to acknowledge that we have our the mayor's chief of staff with us, and that's Tanny Washington. So not seeing any other comments at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the Office of Management and Budget for their review. Are you with us?
Yes, George. Hello?
Yes, George, I can hear you.
Yes, okay, all right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Council President, and honorable members of City Council. I would like to present the Finance Department proposed operating budget for FY 2021. The budget details I'm presenting here are based on the original proposed budget, which was developed prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Finance Director will be discussing revisions to some of the budget items during his presentation. The department proposed budget request, which includes the general and water source funds, is $17.2 million. The proposed general fund budget request is just under $10.1 million. This represents an increase of $469,000 or 4.9% over the FY 2020 budget. Here are the various account changes. Personal services increased by $54,000 or 1%. Regular salaries rose by $77,400, largely due to a citywide 2% COLA, step increases for non-union classified employees, and annual reviews for executive and managerial employees. Pension contributions decreased by $44,000. Overtime decreased by $13,000 due to a lesser need for staffing during the wage tax filing season. MS&E in the general fund increased a total of $398,000 or 10.1%. The total increase consists of the following. Parking citations commissions rose by $132,500 to cover costs associated with the Paylog digital parking permit service, and also an increase in the parking citations contract. Because sheriff safe activity is trending downward, collection expense legal fee sales decreased by $50,000. Collection expense red light commissions increased by $255,000 to cover the cost of installing digital red light cameras at 17 additional intersections in the city. Due to an increased number of customers using a credit card for payment, collection expense credit card fees increased by $20,000. Log box charges increased by $55,000 to cover an increase in the number of transactions processed. Moving on to the water source fund, the department budget request is just under $7.2 million. This represents an increase of $322,000 or 4.7% over the FY 2020 budget. Here are the various account changes that occurred. Personal services decreased by $73,000 or 2.8%. A meter reader position was eliminated for a savings of $76,500. Regular salaries rose by a net $11,650 or 0.7% due to a citywide 2% COLA, step increases for non-union classified employees, annual reviews for executive and managerial employees. Hospitalization decreased by $52,000 as a result of employees choosing the lower cost PPO2 and EPO healthcare plans. MS&E in the water source fund increased a total of $362,000 or 8.9%. The total increase consists of the following. The department is implementing a water utility call center to be hosted by a third-party entity, resulting in an increase of $220,000 to miscellaneous charges. The change to monthly billing has also increased the payments flowing through the department logbox service, necessitating an increase of $90,000 in the logbox account. Computer software licenses increased by $40,000 to provide support and maintenance for a debt management software program. Finally, debt service increased by $28,500 per the existing debt service schedule. This concludes my overview of the Finance Department proposed budget. I will be glad to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, George. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Bret Taylor, Director of Finance, who can go through an opening presentation. If there's any other members of staff that are on here that you want to introduce, Mr. Taylor, that's fine also. And then we'll get into the questions and answers. Mr. Taylor, are you with us?
I am. Thank you very much for having me. My opening comments are that the Department of Finance, first thing I want to say is thank you to the employees of the Department of Finance. During the COVID-19 situation, our department employees have really stepped up to the challenge and have adjusted very well to the changes in the working environment. Many of them are working from home in terms of the social distancing, but we have not missed a beat with respect to the processing of payments as well as the collection of revenue. Likewise, we have a number of individuals that have had to stay in the building due to the sensitive nature of the information that we deal with. We have to keep the information in the building, and does not allow us to take work home and work in a remote setting. With that said, these employees have come in day in and day out and have really stepped up to the challenge of having to work in kind of uncertain conditions. So I'd like to say thank you to them, and I applaud a good job. From our standpoint, we are still on pace with a lot of the initiatives that we had introduced last year, primarily in terms of improving our customer service, improving our collections of accounts, improving a number of our processes, and integrating new technology into those processes to make us more efficient. With that said, I think we've had no head increase in terms of personnel. In fact, we're going to be reducing one down. We anticipate going through the year, evaluating these very same systems and getting better. That seems to be the narrative that we're going to have in FY21. We are reaching out to organizations outside of ours to get advice on best practices, on what we can do to improve the efficiency of the department and how we function. We continue to collect revenue, although the customer service center is closed here in the city, we have stepped up and people are paying online. That's really kind of a good news for us, is that just in the last month, we've seen our increase in payment in the utilization of our payment modules go from 36% to almost 50% of the payments coming in are coming in through the electronic means. So we're, I think for a tough situation, I think we're managing through it very well. We could go on to the presentation.
Did you want to discuss your vision and some of your priorities?
Our role has not changed demonstrably from last year. We continue to be responsible for the overall financial management of the city. That includes financial oversight, collections, accounting, accounts receivable, financial analysis, accounts payable, parking, and utility financing. As you recall, we are the financial management system for our municipal water utility. We mail out 30,000 bills a month. With that, we also receive payments from 98% of those. So we are very, very busy in this regard. Our mission statement was changed last year and we still stand by it. We want to have excellence in financial management, and we want to preserve the financial integrity of the city of Wilmington through excellent accounting services, customer service, and financial management. Next slide. Our vision statement remains the same. We want to develop financial policies and systems that ensure a strong financial and effective city government. We want to maintain the financial integrity of the city and its related agencies through generally accepted accounting principles, and to provide excellent customer service through courteous engagement and ease of transactions. Next slide. As George had referred to it earlier, our budget consists of $17.2 million. That is split between $10 million for the general fund and roughly 7.2 for the water sewer fund. We have a staff of 84 full-time personnel, and we have 9 divisions in which we work. Next slide. The priorities for fiscal year 21, again, are very consistent with FY20. We want to continue to provide a positive customer service experience for constituents. We want to ensure highly reliable accounting policies and quality control and quality assurance. This is an area that we are refocusing this year. We had, as I've said through several finance committee meetings, we are continuing to look at our accounting practices during the year and not waiting to the close of the fiscal year to address certain items within the general ledger, so that when we do close the books this year, we will have a cleaner, more efficient audit. Likewise, we have quality control and quality assurance processes we're putting in place. We're taking a real strong look at our utility billing and billing overall. And we're looking at how we can improve the payment systems. This is all consistent with optimizing internal collection processes and improve revenue performance. We have a Brian Dennis, who is our account services manager, has come on board, supervisor has come on board and has given us a real boost towards looking at our collection processes. We are still continuing to look at the biggest owers for the city. We are focusing on them to ensure that those who have not paid and who continue to accumulate large bills will be our first and foremost priority. Lastly, we cultivate the best practices through improved business processes, enhanced data management, and relevant technology. You will be hearing in 2021 some changes to how we perform our processes, including going out and looking for a new payment system. The payment system will consist of a single portal for a customer to go in and be able to look at all of their accounts in one view and to be able to pay on those accounts without having to go to multiple payment systems. Likewise, we're going to be looking at some of our billing technology and some of our telephone connections. I just got off the phone today talking about a possible mobile application for being able to look up and pay bills using your mobile phone. Next slide. 3 areas that we are concerned about. We call them the 3 C's. One is collections. Again, focusing on top accounts. We want to reduce our outstanding accounts receivable year over year. We want to increase the online payment use from 25% to 50%. This is good news because I think we are seeing that experience right now, albeit we have only 1 month of data to show. We're going to watch this number carefully through the rest of the year. Compliance. We want to ensure we have a clean audit. We want to make sure that we ensure GASB rule compliance is in effect. We want to close the fiscal year timely and without significant or material findings. We also want to pay vendor invoices within 30 days of invoice date. And of course, reduce the number of findings of internal audits. Next page. Customer service. This is the 3rd C. Implement the customer service call center. Now this is in place. We have ongoing training for customer service in all of the departments through all of the employees. We have instituted a purchase card program for all departments to go ahead and purchase items that are under $5,000, therefore reducing the need for a purchase order. And we want to implement a vendor self-serve. That means any vendor who does business with the Department of Finance can go online and be able to do all of their business virtually. We've instituted the call service center, and our wait times have been reduced to less than 1 minute. We've also have noticed our abandoned call rate is down below 3%, and our call processing rate is approximately 4 minutes. We have triaged this call center to be able to provide customers support through telephone payments or to talk to a live person to provide payment assistance. We're also increasing the use of e-commerce. This is ACH utilization for vendors to be able to make payments through ACH instead of the vendor checks. One other area that I think I'd like to highlight is that we went live this week with a system whereby we're taking electronic payments from online banks that had previously paid by check. We would often get 500 checks a day, which manually had to be processed in the Munis system. That has now been converted over to an e-lockbox. Those checks are now coming to us virtually, and the information is being uploaded into Munis directly. So we have saved a significant number of person hours with this new process. Now, we just went live on Friday. It's going to take us a little bit of time to work out the details and build some metrics, but I would be happy to come back and share those with you at a later date. So we have some great things going on in the Department of Finance. I think that we're weathering the storm pretty well. We have a dedicated team that is interested in making sure that payments get processed appropriately and revenue is collected. It's going to be vital that, particularly during this time of uncertainty, we stay on our toes and to be able to track revenues in a way that are where the administration can make some decisions about how the revenue is coming in and how we can step up collections and how we can weather this storm coming. I'd be happy to take questions from council members. I do have a list of questions that Marshall had given. I don't know if, Mr. Chair, you want to go through those.
That's the process. We're going to go through those
questions.
questions, and there might be other questions as we're going through them. All right. I wanted to mention that we've been joined by Councilmember Linda Gray from the 1st District. Ms. Oliver, I haven't even gotten to ask the question yet. You got your hand up. Are you okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Just making sure everything was okay. I'll wait till you get to the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, discuss the budgetary account lines that could potentially be impacted as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The good news is that the Department of Finance doesn't anticipate any additional expenses or significant additional expenses as a result of COVID-19. Other than the masks and some of the PPE that has come in to help with the social distancing issues we've taken care of. We have allocated money from our operating budget to have laptops provided to those individuals who want to work from home. The customer service center has been closed off to the public, but we've pivoted and we are able to streamline our staff to work both inside and outside on the issues. So we don't anticipate anything significant outside of that.
You don't anticipate any additional cuts in your budget that you're presenting?
Those cuts are being, not at this time. We are still working through with the administration what if we do see a downturn in the revenue. We're going to be, alongside my colleagues in the other departments, offering up potential areas where we could reduce.
Okay. Discuss the current vacant positions, specify duration of vacancy, time frame for filling the positions.
We have an accounts payable supervisor that works in our accounting office on the 5th floor. Accounts service rep 2, which is downstairs in the 1st floor area, and an accounts services agent. Eloise Watson, who retired after, 40+ years, has left us and enjoying her retirement, but we had an open position for that. Now, these have been placed on hold all three of these positions have been placed on hold due to a hiring freeze until we have some certainty around what the revenue picture looks like.
Discuss any proposed changes to positions, new position, deleted, upgrades, title changes, etc.
Yes. One of our challenges has been over the years, we have had only one meter reader in the Department of Finance who would be responsible for shutoffs, turn-ons, and special meter reads. That seems to be, having one individual seems to be a bit of a, not a liability, but it doesn't allow us to be as effective as we can on shutoffs and turn-ons. We have made an arrangement with the Department of Public Works to take on the responsibility of shutoffs and turn-ons for bill paying issues, as well as their own issues with regard to service. So we have agreed to give up one meter reader. That position is going to be included in the Public Works budget. We do have one account rep that will handle some of our special service, special billing reads. That position is going to continue to stay in this department. But for the most part, we think that the Department of Public Works will, by picking this up, we'll solve two problems. One, we'll be more effective at shutoffs and turn-ons, as well as Public Works really should be responsible for actually touching the infrastructure connected to the system. So the liability, so there won't be any liability issues.
Okay. Discuss the 5.5 budget in miscellaneous services up 750,000 over the prior year budget. I know that's split between the general fund and water sewer fund. Specify vendor's name, length of contract, etc. Specify if any vendors are DBEs.
That's all the, yeah. So we've got a number of contracts that we have taken on over the last 2 years, and it's been primarily due to the billing shifting to monthly billing, as well as trying to get a handle on our parking, collections, and citations. For instance, we have a number of contractors. The ones that we have in our department are under false alarms, parking citations through conduit, and red light cameras through conduit. We also have the collection service through conduit. We have the Randstad. If you can go to the next chart, please. We also have collection services under conduit. We have the legal teams who help us with our collections and sheriff sales. We also have an increase in our call center costs through Randstad. This is the third-party call center that handles the initial calls from for the water utility. We're expanding that this year, and we'll talk about that a little bit, because we're adding more departments to the Randstad, to the call center requirements. Another is that our mailroom systems budget had gone up as a result of the number of mailings. If you recall, we had a mid-year budget adjustment due to the mailroom systems. The number of mailings we were doing had tripled, and our budget had played catch up. So what we're seeing is we're adding more services in order to make sure that we meet the demand. Sorry.
Councilmember Johnson, did you have a question? Councilmember Johnson?
Yes. The Director Taylor, I'm familiar with the history of the red light program in Conduit, but is there some way that there can be some modification of the contract given the pandemic? Is there a exit clause, act of God clause? Because looking at it, it's a $1.5 million contract. But if people aren't on the road, you're not able to gain obviously revenue from the program. So I could see it, obviously, depending on how long traffic is still at a standstill. Maybe if there's some concession we can have from Conduit to kind of lessen the expense on the city side, because it's not regular times. Is there talk about that, doing that with Conduit?
There has not been, but I'd be happy to bring that up with Conduit, and I'd be happy to bring it up with the law department to see what our legal opportunities are. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because it's a fixed intersection contract. We pay a one-time fee per month for each intersection, and it's not based on volume. So I understand your point that since we don't have the volume, they're still getting paid. Likewise, if we based it on the number of people going through red lights and they were to get a percentage, Conduit would probably be making far more than what they're making now. But your point is well taken. I'd be happy to engage Conduit as well as the law department in that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Councilmember Oliver? Councilmember Oliver? Okay, very good. I guess we're going to move on.
But, no,
Yes.
but,
Yes.
okay. Now, my sentiments was the same, but mine was on the customer service. I was thinking, basically saying as Councilman Johnson, the customer service volume is not there. And I was wondering what the legality of that is being taken, if any, because I know the volume's not there as far as you're saying waiting 1 minute and the volume's not there. So that's what I was thinking as far as the customer service, and we lease this out to individuals for the customer service call center, and we don't have the calls coming in like that due to the virus.
Right. Council member, intuitively, yes, you would think that the volume has gone down as a result. Actually, what I was doing today is I'm putting together some statistics on what our call volume has been over the last month and a half. And our call volume has actually, in some cases, gone up. Okay. Because they're unable to come into the customer service center. People are beginning to rely more on the call center. But I'd be happy to share that with you. Intuitively, I get it. Yeah, I think you would think that because people are just kind of hunkering down and not looking at these kinds of things. But the good news is that people are still paying their bills and they are calling in. So I'd be happy to share those numbers with you when I get them done. Okay,
Mr. Chair, may I follow up?
Okay.
I'd just like to say, I think the Department of Finance is really doing a great job. I know some of the constituents in the 3rd District are very pleased with your office and some of the changes you have made. So I just wanted to give you kudos. That's all. I just wanted to double check to see if the volume, but now that you made that statement, I can see people sitting home maybe calling a little more regularly just to check on and see what's the status or whatever. I just thought of the customer service. I was thinking it may be, the volume may be down, but you may be right. It may even pick up. That's all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Guy? Mr. Guy?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you. Earlier, did you say, I think you were asked about additional expenditures related to COVID? And did
Yes,
you
sir.
say 0?
I said that there were not significant expenses related to COVID.
Okay,
It's been mostly in personal protection equipment and laptops. We do anticipate putting that information into our grant request under the FEMA reimbursement program. So we think that we're going to be able to recover, but we have not had a large outlay like some other departments would say that are more on the front lines.
okay. So does your department handle putting in one request for the whole city, or is each department does that separately using your staff?
What we're trying to do is we have asked all departments to code to a specific project account. So when they have a COVID-related expenditure, they will, when they fill out their paperwork, they will post it to a specific COVID account. We will process that as a normal payment, right? So if they order something, they could, but they also are coordinating with Willie Patrick, who is heading up, our emergency management approach. And he's keeping an eye on what those expenses are. But we do help the other departments with isolating those expenses. We do have two grants team members here who are monitoring those dollars, and we will be participating in submitting for a federal reimbursement under the COVID-19 or the CARES Act program.
Okay, so basically from a budget perspective, using the word COVID is basically saying these are unexpected expenditures. Essentially, that's what we're saying. So is that a dollar amount? Or is there a way for you to provide a listing of these unexpected expenditures, things that have been coded? Is that something you can forward to us so that we have an idea of the, I guess, magnitude and nature of our unexpected expenditures? Because that has some impact on how we look at the budget moving forward. Can you generate that report?
Yes, I can. I do want to have one caveat though. Under the CARES Act, the money that has been allocated to the state and what can be reimbursed is for expenditures directly related to COVID. What we are anticipating though is that what's going to happen if we have a continued decline in revenue as a result of economic issues that are sensitive to the city, such as a decline in wage taxes or a decline or an increase in water bills not paid and loss of revenue because people are out of work. Those are not allowed to be directly reimbursed by the federal government under the current situation. We are having conversations with our congressional delegation to look at what if those dollars could be used for potential revenue losses over the long run. Those are two, so there are two different issues. The short answer is yes, we would be happy to get you the information regarding direct COVID-19 related expenses. As far as revenue projections out, we're going to be having our conversations with WeFact, and we will be apprising City Council as we move forward once we get a little bit more information under our belt.
Yeah, my interest, I'm interested in both, but for purposes of today, if you could just forward what you said you could, that'll be fine, because that'll allow at least to get a sense of what the COVID impact has been that's already documented through those codings. Okay, the next
Happy to
item
do it.
is, Cash balance. Okay, you mentioned that the utility, you made reference to a utility that we provide services for. And what utility were you making reference to? Because you weren't specific.
I'm sorry, it was the water, sewer, and stormwater utility?
Okay, so now with respect to that utility, were you stating that our budget or your budget includes money to provide free services to that utility? Is that the point you were making?
I don't think so. What I was, we anticipate that because of unemployment, people being unemployed, we're anticipating that there may be delays in bills. Now, what we have done is we have suspended penalties and interest on any bills that are not paid. But we anticipate that our accounts receivable is going to go up. We do not anticipate any forgiveness of that at this point. But we are not shutting anybody's water off. We are not going to send properties to sheriff's sale. They have all been suspended. Penalties and interest have been suspended. And any customer who is having a difficulty making their payments can call our offices, call the customer service center, and then they will be transferred to our account services team to work out payment agreements or any other kind of hardship issues that they may have. Now, there are some programs that we work with, such as the Delaware State Housing Authority has a program for seniors to help with some of their utility costs. We work with DSHA on that particular program. So we would be happy to have conversations about that. One thing that we don't have is a large corpus of money, and something that we should contemplate into 2021, to have a hardship account for the city. That is something that I continue to have conversations to see whether we can raise some money for that. But that's the relief package in a nutshell for now.
Well, now I guess my purpose in the question, all the information that you gave was good, appreciate it, and is helpful to the community as well. But my focus of my question was, you mentioned that we provide services for this utility. And my question is, do we give them a bill? Because we're dealing with our budget. So do we send them like an annual bill that they pay for the services that we provide to the utility? That's a very narrow question. Do we bill the utility for the services that we provide?
Well, the water utility is our utility.
I understand.
So we run that. We do bill other utilities, such as Delmarva Power and Light.
No, I'm talking about water only. The water sewer utility that we own. For
right.
Accounting purposes, don't we keep separate books?
We keep them in a separate fund. It's the water sewer fund, correct?
So do we bill them for the services that are provided?
We bill, actually the water sewer fund bills us in terms of if you had city buildings, they get a bill. Water sewer fund, we the city are the water sewer fund, we bill customers. And all of those receipts go into the water sewer fund. They do not go to the general fund. So a short answer to your question is yes, we bill out every customer who receives water, sewer services, and stormwater services. We give them a bill, and they pay us directly. And it goes into the water sewer fund. Those dollars then go to operate the water utility and to offset, other payments, the operating, debt service, and capital infrastructure for the water sewer fund.
I think I'm still trying to get you to narrow down. Like you mentioned that there's billing that's done by your department and collection.
Correct? Correct.
Okay. So do you provide those two services to the utility for free, or do you send them a bill given that you provide these services?
I understand where you're going with this. So, in effect, we split the cost of the finance department's operations between the water sewer fund and the general fund. For instance, part of my salary is split between the water fund and the general fund. Likewise, all the way down the board, whoever works in our department and works on water sewer operations or, finance, they do the billing, they get split funded. Likewise, we also bill out any materials, support, etc., to the water sewer fund. So they are split funded. In essence, yes, the water sewer fund pays for the Department of Finance's operations.
Okay, thank you. C, D, E. So in order to do that, basically the people in your department, they keep track of any of their hours that are dedicated to the utility. They keep a record of that.
Excuse me, it's by job function? It really is split out by job function. I have my assistant Lois McLaughlin here, and she's helping me with some of the answers to the question. But it is split out by job function. I do not believe that there is a record of how often they work in water sewer fund versus general fund. We know by their job activity where they should be split funded.
Okay, so maybe in our budget, is the order of magnitude of the possible impact even worth looking into whether or not those percentages could maybe be off by a little bit that might be to the benefit of the city of Wilmington's budget? Is the order of magnitude even worth looking into?
Actually, that is done by Black and Veatch, our consultant on the water side. They do take a look at, we go through an exercise each year in which we level up who we think, who is working in the water sewer side and what percentage of their hours are established there. That is a document that Black and Veatch produces for us. And I think we go through a pretty thorough conversation about that. So in answer to your question, I think it's pretty accurate. And we have an annual evaluation of that.
Okay, can you send the most current evaluation?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The next question I have has to do with revenue projections.
Mr. Guy, there's a special presentation that we're going to do on revenue projections.
Is that today?
No, it'll be Monday.
Okay, well, all I need from you is the revenue projection documents, minutes, notes that were used to create this budget. So you still have those, whatever was voted on at the last, I guess, WEFAC meeting?
WEFAC has not met yet to vote on those documents. They will later this week so that we can have them on Monday evening.
Well, I think you may be misinterpreting what I'm asking. We have a budget bill in front of us right now. So unless there's something magical going on, somebody used some revenue projections to create this budget.
Right.
So I want the document, the revenue projections that were used, the documents that were used to come up with a revenue projection that led to the creation of this budget. I understand there's going to be modifications. Everybody makes modifications the closer it gets to budget, actual passing the budget. But I want the documentation that was used to create this ordinance, because that's right at this moment, that's the most current information.
Right.
So do you still have that information, and are you able to forward that in?
That's already been shared.
The administration can forward you the revenue projections that were used for this budget, yes.
Right, okay.
It's already been shared as a part of the budget package.
But they can get you that information and then we'll review it again on Monday evening.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, don't get this wrapped up with anything that you're doing. I'm asking for the revenue projection information that was used to create this ordinance.
Fiscal year 2021 budget.
Right,
Right, yeah, I understand.
okay. EF. All right, that's good for now.
All right, so people waiting, President Shabazz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Taylor, Council had did a resolution, I mean, in your new programming and improved mode of operations, does that include being able to respond to the senior ID program that Council sent the resolution over for? Be able to identify our seniors through the real estate tax exemption, and be able to identify them for if there was any citations and things of that nature. Your identification program recommendations we sent over. Does your new programs include in capturing that information?
It has been helpful to us. I know that you and I have had conversations about integrating it more. I think that we need to do so. We do a lot of communications. There's a number of areas that we probably should be communicating with the seniors more, particularly on this Delaware State Housing Authority Assistance Program. And we also sent out information just recently to all the seniors with regard to the tax exempt, the lifetime tax exempt status. But there's more to do. I will say to you, we probably need to maximize that. We need to get together and have a conversation about how to do that, how to use that more effectively.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, there's one other question. Also, the recommendation for us to apply with the DENREC for the grant, if financial assistance available for low-income subgroups. I know that with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, I know that the DENREC was waiting to upgrade that whole process or application. Have that been included in your new listing of new and improved mode of operations?
We are waiting on new regulations that are being promulgated for that. I'd be happy to get you an answer on the status of that this week, but I'm awaiting it as well as you. That's going to be a key item in our arsenal to help with alleviating some of this. In fact, it's going to be probably more important now given the COVID-19. So excellent suggestion. I'd be happy to get you an update.
Great, great. And one last question, Mr. Chair, if I may. What percentage of your staff is in still in the office, and then what percentage is working from home?
We have approximately, I'd say about 25% of the employees are on caregiver leave. We have, I would say, approximately 35% are still working in the building.
Okay.
We have a pretty high percentage working in the building, particularly in our customer service area, our wage tax area, and then the remainder are working from home.
Okay.
And in some cases, they are rotating it out. Like for here in our accounts payable unit, we have individuals that come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, two that come in Tuesday and Thursday, so they can rotate out so that they are not just working in isolation. They're getting an opportunity to work from home and still be, social distancing.
Great. And I'd like to just extend my appreciation to those who are flexing their lifestyle to, to make sure that the finance department is still functioning.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Dixon.
Thank you, Chairman. I just had a question for, I was actually also had a question around the red light ticketing too, but I also think that we probably won't see all those numbers yet, just because of where we are, and we haven't really had enough people. Probably the people that are calling in are the ones who already had their tickets already prior to COVID. So there probably will be an increase or decrease in some point for the red light tickets based on that, as well as for the parking tickets. I was wondering, I know the parking tickets like downtown, for example, are free right now. So how long will that be until, and then also will that impact the finance dollars coming in as well?
You are correct. We are looking month to month on the revenue production from the red light camera and the parking tickets. We've had about a month of solid, a solid month in April. Once we get to April 30th, we'll be able to give you a solid month of what that performance looks like. So we're as interested in it as you are. We're watching it day by day. Believe it or not, the red light camera, I don't know if we've seen that volume drop all that significantly, but at the same time, we're also installing the new red light cameras in those intersections that had come online. So we're trying to tease out some of that data. In answer to your two questions, we are going to be providing, the PRIOs have suspended ticketing across the city for parking. The governor's order is extended until May 15th. That was kind of our date that we were looking at, but the administration, our administration hasn't made a decision yet, just how long we'll continue to have that occur. My suspicion is that May 15th may come and go, and we'll still be in a social distancing environment, but we will have some, and we'll have some data on what that looks like revenue-wise. But we're going to continue until the administration decides let's restart the parking ticket issue. I will tell you that we get about $3 million in parking revenue each year. We're building into our revenue projections a full quarter, if not a full quarter for this year, starting in March through June, of no additional parking ticket revenue. So we're going to be losing maybe a quarter of our ticket revenue as a result of this. Likewise, if we don't bring it back online July 1st, we may be, and we're building this into our revenue projections, another quarter of ticket revenue that may slightly come up, but will not be back to 100%. So we're anticipating, a drop in ticket revenue going into the next quarter. That's really from July to September of next fiscal year. We're building that into the modeling. So I think we're losing a good 25% of our revenue. That's going to be about approximately $1 million.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Greco, did you want to make a comment, or? Mr. Greco, I see you have your hand up. Did you want to make a comment?
I did before. I was going to just tell Councilman Guy that the entire revenue section of the proposed budget book includes the information he may be looking for.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Adams, did you have a question at this point?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Field. Yes.
Mr. Adams? Mr. Adams, we can't hear you. Is he still there? Mr. Adams, we can't hear you.
Councilman Adams, your microphone is muted.
Oh, okay. Is that better? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I ended up rebooting twice. Don't mean to disappoint the director of finance like that. Yes, nice to see you. Wonderful that your staff has been working through this pandemic. As you know, I ask each year with regard to the remediation and material weaknesses in the CAFR at the end of the year. I was wondering, I guess you can't do anything during the pandemic, but how were you making out remediating those weaknesses prior to the virus taking effect?
Well, one of the areas we talked about is kind of scrubbing the trial balance during the year instead of waiting until the end. I've got a really good data analyst. His name's Ross McGinn. He and I have been going through the exercise of looking at the transactions that have occurred in this fiscal year and making determination about where the correct GL postings should be. So, looking from that standpoint, I think we're making some progress on that. One of the things, we're coming up on our close. We have, starting May 1, we're within 2 months of our closing our books. Every year we go through a process with the departments to make sure that they are on top of making sure that there are no material weaknesses, at least in the process area. And also we'll be dialoguing with them about some adjustments that are going to have to be made to the books in order to make sure that the dollars are appropriately accounted for and reconciled. So this next 2 months is going to be critical to be able to come out with a clean audit next year. I don't anticipate, the other good part of it is that we will be able to, because we're getting ahead of it, my goal is to close the books by Thanksgiving. Usually we do it by December 31st, but I've given my staff an incentive. If we can get the books closed by Thanksgiving, they'll be able to have a nice holiday. But nonetheless, all joking aside, I think the accounting staff recognizes that we've got to eliminate a number of these areas that were highlighted in the budget, and we don't anticipate that we're going to have anything significant this year.
Super.
Okay.
Nice to hear that, Director Taylor. Thank you very much.
Right.
Mr. Field, I don't have any more questions, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Let's try to get back to our questions.
It took him 7 minutes to call on me.
We were 4A, 4B, any vendors, DBEs.
And
Mr. Greco, turn off your microphone. He lists 2, GA Blanco and Sons and Influencers Lab. Next, we wanted to get an update on the implementation of the Water Utility Center. 400,000 budget in 20 and 220,000 budget in fiscal year 21.
What this is because of the success of going to the customer service center, the administration has decided to bring a number of other departments into the fold to allow us to have one single point of contact for customers to call in other areas, such as Parks and Recreation, Real Estate and Housing, Office of Economic Development, the Mayor's Office, and Finance. And what that's going to do is going to allow us to track those numbers a lot more effectively about who's calling in, how we're getting the constituents' issue resolved, and how fast. I also know that Public Works has embarked on a system called Salesforce, in which we're going to be able to track constituents' issues through the year. So if someone calls in, they will be able to create a ticket. That ticket will then be either resolved or handed off to another department, and we'll be able to track where each constituent's issue is in the process. That way, constituents don't have to call multiple numbers to figure out where their issue is in the city. That is culminating in a 311 call number that the administration is contemplating putting in place. So instead of calling our standard customer service number, we will have a 311. You'll be able to dial 311 and be able to call in. It is not up and running yet, but the administration is currently working on it. The costs for these are being, portions of it are being included in the finance department's budget.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, did you have a question?
Yes, Councilman Friel. I just had a question, Director, regarding DBEs. I've had this discussion with other department heads. Currently, for your legal services and law firms, are any of those vendors DBEs?
They are not.
Okay. And I've had this similar conversation with other department heads. Are you interested in working with the other departments and trying to establish a DBE list for law firms?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Under our procurement section, which is under our responsibility, we provide obviously contracts out to numerous vendors. One of the things we need to do is connect those two things up, which is the DBE list. And we do keep the DBE list, and we send out those contracts, those RFPs and RFIs out to people that are on the DBE list. The question is, how do we encourage them to be able to apply, right? How to meet the requirements of the DBE and to be able to be selected. So I am absolutely on board with having us work through what that looks like. I think it's incumbent on our procurement staff to kind of work through that process in tandem with the Economic Development Office, which handles the DBE, but I've been more than happy to help you with that.
Great. And just to follow up in regard to sheriff sales, we have had talks about, kind of slash budgets. And I know you have in-house and outside counsel support. Is there any way we can kind of look at the sheriff sale budget and trim away some of that fat? And I know you're going to be talking over the next few weeks, but if we're not moving sheriff sales through this summer or possibly the end of the year, is there some room there?
Yes.
Okay.
We'd be happy to look at it.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Oliver? Councilmember Oliver? There she is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to speak on the DB aspect. I've been in conversation with Jeff Flynn and Mr. Dwayne, in reference to working a little closer with the DB contractors. So I would like to stay on the map if y'all meet about that, or we could talk about that off the record. But Mr. Flynn, I would like to meet with you in reference to how your department can be more engaged and, like you said, try to connect the list of the RFPs and the other organizations together so that everybody can be on the same page, because I don't think it's necessarily that they don't know how to apply or don't have the requirements. I think sometimes it's just getting the information out.
Precisely. We would encourage and welcome an opportunity to do a workshop for potential DBEs. Let's try to get something organized. I think we'd be happy to do that.
I agree. Okay, well overdue. Thank you so much.
The last part of this question talks about the funds collected fiscal year 19-2021 for some of the commission categories. You have a nice chart here, but I'm assuming a lot of this was put together before the major impacts are going to hit us from the COVID-19, at least for 2021.
That is correct. These were done pre-COVID-19. We did see some softness, though. As of March 31st, we saw some of the parking citations were down. That had a little bit of the impact.
Right.
The red lights were down, but the red lights were down as a result of the
construction.
One of our biggest problems was the construction that was going on,
right, and
the difficulty to be able to get the permits done, and then the actual be in the road bed to be able to put them in. But we think that pre-COVID, we think that we're going to have all of the red light cameras are going to be operational as of June 1st. And I stand by my previous, reference to the parking citations, and that we're probably going to go out till September on some of the softness in the revenue.
Okay. Discuss the planned use of $535,000 budget professional fees, up $25,000. And you're going to list for us the vendors' names and contracts.
Right. Could you go to the next page, please? We've had a number of some of the things we wanted to do. I made reference to them at the beginning of the presentation in terms of creating some efficiencies. We've had work done with respect to training and development. We have our accounting services. This is help that we get from the accountants in the creation of the CAFR, and some supplemental reporting. Issues had popped up last year where we had to use their guidance to work through them. We'd like to have what we call a collections module. This is a payment agreement module so that we can have better tracking of people who enter into payment agreements. Right now, we do everything on paper. We have a binder that has payment agreements in it. We want to be able to convert that into a module into Munis so that we can track them more effectively. We have people coming in for multiple payment agreements simply because we lose track of their previous payment agreements. We want to tighten down some of the efficiencies that you're seeing there. The procurement piece is that we wanted to implement vendor self-serve. This is where vendors would be able to go online and be able to do all of their work and dialogue with us through the internet. Next page.
You have a list here then of your temps, the budget, and their planned use for each of them. I'm not going to ask you to go through each one of these.
I only have one comment, and that is that this is all pre-COVID. The question is, we're still unclear about how many temps we're going to need going into a post-COVID world. So we're going to be evaluating this as part of that as well.
Discuss the planned use of $280,000 in the post-direct charge account line.
This is a residual from last year, where in the middle of the year we increased the mailroom systems postage allocation, and we're doing a lot more communication via the mailers, such as the Water Gazette, some of the mailings that are going out. And then we have our annual expense for business license and wage tax coupon booklets. This is something that maybe we'll explore in FY22 as to how we can get away from all of this paper-intensive, costly paper-intensive operations. If we could put things more online, I'm all about creating systems to be able to do that.
Just if we have any constituents listening in, we are getting close to our end here. So if you feel you want to make public comment on the finance department's budget, I'm going to need to see you to raise your hand so I can get you in before 6:30. Mr. Guy, do you have a question? Mr. Guy, do you have a question?
Me now?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay, thanks. For the most part, when people talk about COVID, the focus are the problems. But there's also some good things that are happening in this world because of COVID. So I want to ask you, as this COVID has hit, has it caused you to notice anything about your department that from a budgetary perspective that might have illuminated something that was good for you to find out?
One observation, and that is we have historically done a lot of our work in a face-to-face manner, and we have depended on old systems. COVID-19 has really kind of made me think about how to improve some of the technology that will allow people to do things more efficiently with ease of transactions from the comfort of their homes. I think that as financial services has evolved, I think the city of Wilmington needs to evolve in the same way. With that said, I think investments in these systems are warranted. It's going to take a little time to figure out what that looks like because you've got to go through an evaluation of the operational processes. But if we can have people pay online with ease, that would be a great thing. If they can get information more effectively and submit documents more quickly online, I think that that's a good thing. So COVID-19 has taught us a lot about how to engage with the customer from a remote standpoint.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Deputy Director Leveridge, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to add to that. That was a great question that he asked. Some of the efficiencies or things that we see that the finance department have been able to recognize during this COVID. One of the things that I've noticed is that, as the director said, that more people are paying online. They are still sitting in their payments, but that is beneficial for us because when we go out to look for a vendor, we can definitely push for the online and give them some direction on where we would like to move in regards to that direction. Another thing I found to be beneficial is less distractions, of course. If you are in the building, you don't have the outside world coming in. So that could allow us, which has allowed us to be able to process the payments that was coming into us, at least about 500 to 600 a day. We were processing them and we were up to date daily with them. So we could see the benefit. There was some benefits of the COVID-19. So our department has been working diligently with the community.
Thank you. Okay, discuss the planned use of 162 budgeted for printing and advertising. And you put together a chart here showing the breakdown for each section, along with the breakdown by general fund and water fund, and then the purpose of each of those expenditures. We're getting close to the end here. That's why I'm trying to get some of these in. Discuss 144,000 budget between travel and membership and registration.
This takes into account not only travel and membership and registration, it also takes into account training. In fact, 56,000 of it is allocated to the department for department-wide training. We went through a series of, and are still going through a series of trainings for everybody in the department in the areas of customer service, employee engagement, meaning that how to work better with their employees and their colleagues, and creating more efficiency in the process. We've also done supervisory trainings. All of our managers have been through extensive training on working with their colleagues. So we think that this was much needed, much due. We're going to continue to do that. Now, in a post-COVID-19 world, we are going to be making some considerations about whether this is a lot. For instance, if we know that there isn't going to be travel because of people's restrictions on travel, we may be able to make some adjustments there. But again, this was a pre-COVID-19 budget, and we'll be evaluating that in the next couple weeks.
You see the possibility as we develop into a new normal down the road that there'll be less need for travel, and you could have these same sessions through webinars and different outlets like that?
Absolutely. In fact, we're doing more of it now.
Right. And
most of our engagements with our vendors, such as JP Morgan Chase, is doing some free customer service training with us. We're doing that via Zoom calls. So.
Okay. All right. Discuss the planned use of 107,000 budgeted for overtime.
We've cut back our overtime in the last over the last year. The mayor was concerned about where our the administration's overtime budget was overall, and we're cutting that back. However, with that said, we do have some overtime that is required, such as year-end audits and CAFR preparation. There's always something that comes up as a result of that. Some of we need a little bit of money to be able to pull people out for customer service trainings. If you're having all this training, you need to be able to backfill with some of the overtime so that people can fill in. And lastly, when tax season, when property tax collections come in, and when wage tax collections come in, we are almost guaranteed that we have to have some overtime in order to handle that surge of payments coming through.
Okay, the last question is the org chart, which you'll find at the end of your packet or the presentation for you to look over at your leisure. And then he's got a breakdown once again of his different divisions and folks within that division. That's all our questions for the Finance Department's hearing. It takes us pretty much to the end here. Are there any additional questions before we close out and get ready for our IT budget hearing? Was there anyone from the public on that did want to comment? I'm not seeing anything. All right, Councilmember Dixon.
Yeah, sorry. I tried to get before you went to the public. Just had a quick question regarding the, I know we had talked about briefly the status of the sheriff cells and water bills have been suspended. Do we know how long that'll be in effect?
Again, the May 15th date is the date of the governor's put out there. We suspect that that's probably going to be longer. I will tell you that we have accommodated in our revenue projections, at least in our initial models, that it's going to be longer. So we've built that into kind of our scenario. We think that again, it'll all depend on when we can get the workforce back into back to work. If people are unemployed, it puts more pressure on some of the other areas. So it'll be dependent on how fast the recovery occurs. It's an open-ended date at this point until the administration tells us to start or we decide to re-engage on those items. We're going to keep it open-ended.
Okay, thank you. And then just one quick question. I know one last question. I saw that the court fee admin side from the general fund is like down to, I think it was like, is that because we're not using the court fees? We're not using the courts as much right now, or is there a reason for the decrease?
The decrease is that we've seen a decrease in the amount of red light tickets and parking tickets going to court.
Okay.
So we're seeing, and from that standpoint, people aren't appealing. We're spending less time there. So that might be a positive. You never know.
No, I thought that was great. I saw that inside the note. So kudos to you guys for that, for sure. And thank you for all the work. Because if I have any questions around water bills or any of those individuals that come up, Director, you've been great at responding and answer to those. So thank you for that. That's it for me. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Thank you all for your participation. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back at 6:45 to hear from the Office of Information Technology. Thank you.
Thank you.